In our world, there are places that have witnessed extremely strange situations. Situations that leave our logical and rational thoughts floating among questions that are difficult to answer. 48 years ago, in a rural area of Uruguay, an event occurred that to this day does not have an answer. I am specifically talking about the La Aurora Ranch. Perhaps some of you know this case, but I'm sure many others do not, and that's why today I bring this incredible case to the channel. So I ask you to get comfortable and enjoy this video from beginning to end, because I'm going to tell you every detail of everything that happened. Let's get started. To start this story, we have to go to Uruguay, precisely to Paysandú. Almost on the border with Salto, we find a ranch called La Aurora. Its owners, the Tona family, bought these lands back in the 20s and still own them today. It's a sparsely populated rural area today, and if we imagine it, almost 50 years ago, it was an even more desolate place. Nevertheless, these are just details that help us to fully understand what happened and to accurately place ourselves in the situation. On February 3rd, 1976, at 1:50 in the morning, something happened on this estate that caught the attention of Angel Maria Tona, the owner of the field. This man never imagined that from that night his life and his family's would change. He was about to witness an unprecedented event in the country. It turned out that that night, 10 minutes before 2 in the morning, Angel woke up due to something unusual. The commotion that the chickens were making in the yard and also the dogs that were barking desperately. At that moment, as Angel gets up and starts heading towards the door, he realizes that suddenly there was complete silence. All the animals fell silent at the same time. He stays still, and at that moment he hears a very loud explosion that scared him a lot. Without understanding anything at all, he leaves the house and encounters something very, very strange. The entire field was somehow illuminated by a bluish light or something similar. And looking up, he sees something that left him frozen. There was, indeed, a sphere of very, very intense sky blue light, which was triangular in shape. Although he later realized that there were actually 3 of them and they were floating at a considerable height, moving up and down. In one of his testimonies, Angel Tona recounts that one of the lights that was lower descends almost to the ground and then rises again, entering into another larger one which remains suspended. That's when these lights moved away quickly, and at that moment all the energy left. But not only at Don Angel Tona's estate, we're talking that even in the city of Salto there was a tremendous blackout. The darkness in the countryside was total. There was no electricity. So this man and his family, who were all awake by then, tried to at least sleep again. But in the morning, when they leave the main house of the estate, they begin to find different signs of what had happened during the early hours. The first thing that caught his attention was that about 50 meters from the house, there were 2 fairly large ombu trees, and one of them had disappeared. It was clearly seen that it had exploded, and there was a fairly deep hole that reached down to its roots. Not only that, inside this hole, he found one of his dogs dead. And what astonished him the most was that it was completely dry, as if someone had mummified or embalmed it. In fact, further investigations found dozens of meters around hares and different rodents dead in the same way. They were practically stuffed the same way as the dog, without even giving off a single drop of smell. By then, the case began to gain relevance, even more so because there was no reasonable explanation for all this. And it was completely ruled out that this family made up the situation to attract visitors. There was no logic in this. If we dig a little deeper into this place, we find that this event was neither the first nor the only one. In 1968, 2 young couples drove their car to the banks of the Damon River. And in the middle of the night, they had to flee in terror because a light settled on the roof of the car. This place is just 3 kilometers from the La Aurora estate. And we also have a report from the Uruguayan Air Force that mentions a plane flying over the area where the La Aurora estate is located. It was followed for several kilometers by a ball of light. This also happened in 1976. Here it begins to become clear that the area in question is very, very active.
He followed it for a considerable distance, up to several kilometers, and after passing through a cloud, the ball of light stopped following him and dissipated.
Now we have to go to the year 1977, more precisely to February 17th. At night, the Tona family was having dinner like any other day, and suddenly they see a glow in one of the side windows. When they looked out, they realized that there was a very powerful light over one of the pastures where they had cattle. He immediately goes out to see what it was about. It was approximately 9:30 at night. When he gets to the pasture, he encounters an extremely powerful light, about 4 or 5 meters in diameter, floating about 20 meters high. One of his dogs was extremely angry, barking non-stop. At that moment, this light approaches. Angel Maria Tona never imagined what was about to happen. One of the bulls in the pasture, about 15 meters away. He suffers severe burns, just like the rancher on one of his arms and part of the shoulder. And the dog was also burned. Days later, and despite being treated by a veterinarian, both animals die. That ball of light quickly moves to one side, knocking down 3 eucalyptus trees, and somehow also hits and breaks a high voltage tower, leaving the ranch without power. Many marks were found in different areas of the field, but one stood out above all the others.
And in the morning, beyond the record of his burned arm, all at once on the ground, where he had seen that light, a burned cross, a form of burned cross, and 3 marks, like an object, or that same light leaned on the floor, leaving that mark.
All of this was news at that time and aroused great interest in this place by different researchers, graphic media, and also from people who simply wanted to see this that was talked about so much. They wanted to see an unidentified flying object. At first, the Tona family was friendly and receptive, welcoming everyone and even giving away stones from the famous well where the first explosion occurred. But years later, there were some thefts and misunderstandings that forced the family to often deny people's entry. There came a time when the rumor was so strong that the army wanted to investigate what it was about. So, with the permission of the ranch owners, of course, a group of soldiers set up tents in a section of the field. Unfortunately, it was never known what happened because the army did not issue any report on this. But during the mission and at night, all the soldiers fled terrified from this place, leaving belongings scattered all over the field. Many believe that they surely saw something, but we will never know what. None of the soldiers wanted to talk about what happened, and curiously, the army has no records of this mission, or maybe they don't want to show them.
Apparently, and judging by testimonies, in the tent they were in, at a certain point it rises. These people are left, let's say, out in the open at night, and
They surely saw something, but there is no record of what they saw, as they ran away, leaving everything behind. There are no military files or testimonies. None of the military personnel wanted to talk.
The interest in the events happening in this place was so great that even National Aeronautics and Space Administration arrived. It is said that they themselves were investigating the place, although there are no records of this. And a man who visited the site in a completely unexpected way is also mentioned. I'm talking none other than Neil Armstrong, the first man to set foot on the moon on July 21st, 1969 during the Apollo 11 mission. Angel Maria Tona hosted this man for a few days, and it is said that Neil gave him a series of photographs where you could clearly see lights very similar to those he saw himself in his own field, just months ago. These were not the only sightings. There were many more in the following years and even to this day. There is a terrifying testimony about a couple from Santa Fe, Argentina. In short, this couple, like so many other people, approaches the area of the ranch to try to see an unidentified flying object. It was night, and it turns out that as they were getting closer, the car, as often happens so many times in encounters of this type, turns off. It runs out of energy. The occupants were worried. Let's remember that the area is very desolate and completely dark. After a few minutes, they see a very intense light appearing from behind the car that is approaching. At first they thought it was a car that was driving on this rural road and it would be a good idea to ask them for help, but they were mistaken. This light stops and they begin to see silhouettes, but they were not normal. They observed that these people, or whatever they were very short in stature and moved in an unnatural way. At one point, the girl, with a lot of terror, sees that one of these beings was stuck to her partner's glass. That's when they both saw how it stretched out its hand, touched the glass, breaking it. And at that moment, they faint only to wake up after 5 hours in the middle of the night. When they recounted this, they said that this being was short, with very large and black eyes. Their skin was grey and they had no expression lines, like we do. They were very, very strange. Another testimony that particularly reached me, and that's why I decided to make this video, is Fabian from Entre Rios is leveraging his relatives in Concordia. It was in February of 2018 that he made the decision to go to La Aurora Ranch with his motorcycle. He had heard many stories about this place and had never had the opportunity to visit it. He didn't go at night, but in the afternoon. That day was cloudy. Quite pleasant weather in every sense. And remember that almost reaching the estate, he felt something strange, a sensation he had never had before. He didn't hear or see anything strange, but he did have a strong premonition that he shouldn't continue because something bad could happen to him. This was so intense that he didn't want to tempt fate and return to Concordia. The story could end there, but it doesn't. That same night, he dreams that he was in a field with absolutely nothing around and a blue light settles on him. It dazzles him until he can't see anything. And then he appears in a room, lying in front of a completely white, even shiny being who was watching him without doing anything. This dream may seem just that, a dream, but the strangest thing is that he didn't have it just once. To this day, more than 6 years after that time, he continues to have it recurrently. According to him, it's not always the same. Sometimes there's more than one being, although the beginning never changes. A feel, a light and a dazzle. I would like to know what they think about this and whether they believe it has any relation to that visit Fabian made to the La Aurora Ranch. To conclude, I want to mention that many claim this place has healing properties. People say they have healed from incurable diseases, from chronic ailments that had no successful treatment, even people who have recovered from depression. There are also some more curious theories, which claim that beneath this entire area there is an underground city that connects with others around the world, including the city of Urx in Uritorco. We will soon have the video about this place. Some also believe that there is actually an American military base beneath this site. Of course, science has its own version of everything that happened here, attributing the phenomenon that occurred those nights at La Aurora Ranch to ball lightning, which does exist and is perfectly possible. Different researchers believe that this was not the case, and there is actually no doubt that it was an unidentified flying object phenomenon. Another fact I would like to share is that there are communities related to this site. They claim that the end of the world will be around the year 2030, and that these ships, which are appearing more and more, have only one mission: to rescue the believers and take them to a new world. I would like to know what you think about this case, and if you have ever been to this place. Let's remember that here is also the grotto of Padre Pio, built by the Tona family, in gratitude for the miracles granted. Therefore, not only do people come in search of an unidentified flying object experience, but entire families visit the grotto to demonstrate their faith. And, of course, I ask you if you ever had any unidentified flying object experience. On the channel, we have many cases about this. And it's really impressive that every day more people are encouraged to share experiences. somehow demonstrating that this topic, whether we like it or not, whether we believe it or not, is more present than ever. Friends, see you soon with more stories. I hope you enjoyed this video from start to finish, and now I say goodbye. I send a big hug to everyone.